Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at In the Hall of the Mountain King by Jay Cormier and Graham Yons. This is a game about tunneling. This is a game where you and up to 4 other opponents can go vie for prestige and glory and honor by building tunnels and putting great rooms in those tunnels and statues and pedestals and all such manner of things. How does it play? Well, let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look at the components of In the Hall of the Mountain King. First off, you're treated to this game board, wherein all play will be centrally located. You will have your scoring area, you'll have these, which will be explained later. Pretty much everything is going to be explained later. The idea is conceptualize, if you will, that this is the mountain. The mountain has the basic starting colors, and you'll notice the shades of color changing as you get closer and closer to the fires. The thing to note mostly during the game is that the closer you are to the fires and the moves you make, the more valuable things are going to generally be for your statues. The statues all arranged in a pattern. You get to kind of choose how they overlap. Blue, orange, white, blue, orange, white, etc. You also have spell cards, and these will be used by all players to a certain degree. You will have special hallways or rooms. If you can dig a tunnel in such a fashion that you can completely cover it without gaps, then by one of these treasures, then you have the potential to score quite a few bonus points based on the size of the room, and if you can get a statue to be affixed to its statue location. Also, you have plenty of different configurations of tunnel tiles. You have anywhere from 2, 3, 4, and 5 sized tiles in a stack. These are available for all players to use as they place these tiles on the board. You also have special custom tiles, which you can use. These will go onto workshop spots if you can connect to them. And when you do, then every turn you're going to be able to make use of these. You'll be able to use them once for each side of that the workshop is connected, whether it's your tunnel or another's. Then we have the resources, the glorious resources. We have the basic stone type. We have the more iron type, and then we have here the most prized type. They're worth the most points when you build tunnels with them. You also have tools. Tools are interesting because when you get these hardened rock areas and they abound all over the map, you will need to use one of these as well as the additional use of rocks when you're building a tunnel. You'll have to provide one of these for each covered over difficult rock area. Jewels, crystals, are used, the purple thingies. That's how you actually do a spell. You place that onto the spell card to make use of it once per turn. Coins are used for one simple purpose, and that is to purchase additional dwarves, or trolls. Dwarves, silly me. And then finally we have this area. This is the sort of the market, where you're in the market for a good troll. Well, here you go. Here's the pyramid scheme of trolls. And here you have level 1, level 2, level 3 with obviously corresponding benefits. You have these. These are going to be like statues. These are basically where you can place I forgot their name is. I'll look it up. But yeah, this is basically pedestals. Pedestals you place on the board, and if you can get statues onto a pedestal in the right place, it's going to double the amount of points that statue is worth at the end of the game. Again, that'll become clear later, and you'll notice that each of these levels up are they're going to be a different cost. Again, we'll go over it. Finally, each player is going to get their own player board, double-sided for your convenience. In this, you will have your own personal deck of starting cards, and then, of course, this handy sheet. Everything you need to know about the game, honestly, is going to be here. The easy steps you play, the amount of points your statues are going to be worth, and the costs, or the victory point benefits, fame points, whatever you want to call them in this game, here. And then these, once we go over the playthrough, we'll understand a little bit more about it. And finally, you have the Forest of Adermon rulebook, not included, but the Hall of the Mountain King manual, which is pretty darn easy, not very thick, goes over everything in pretty good detail. Actually, no complaints at all. With that, let's get to an example of gameplay. Okay, for starters, and this is the start player indicator, each player is going to take 2 cards in their starting stack and flip them over and say, which one do I want to have for my starting resources? These are the only trolls that actually have 2 resources, top and bottom. Only these matter. Let's say that I want to start off with this hammer. Then, try it again. No, clearly I want that. Then that. Yeah, I'd like that too. And finally, do I want to go stone heavy or do I want to go up here? I'm going to go stone heavy. There you go. And then the first player, these cards are just set aside. They're not used. Same thing with your subsequent opponents. They will go in and do the same thing, except for player 2 and 3. Pretend that didn't happen. Player 2 or 3 will be able to take a additional resource for the last card that they leave behind and don't take advantage of. Same thing. Let's just do that. And then, of course, one's here. Yay, look at that. And then everybody gets the resources that that they start with. So you'd get a hammer, you'd get this, you'd get these 2 and these 2. Look at that. A great start. Then cover it over. That is the start of our pyramid. We get our own personal pyramid schemes. All right. With that done for both sides, we will now get into playing for real. Okay. Also note that each player gets to decide where they're going to start by placing their start tunnel on any of these marked here. I should also note on the board that some of these, like this says 3 players. In a 2-player game, which I'm just setting up for example, 2 or 3 player side of the board, because there's multiple sides of the board, you get to decide where. If you put yourself close to each other, you're going to have some conflict because tunnels can never touch. So you could use that to sort of be combative, or you can do like I'm doing here, starting both players on the opposite sides, and then it will become more of a race and less of a conflict. Also note, these particular resources, etc., around the map, all will be explained at this time. So, on a player's turn, it actually gets pretty easy. You do one of 4 things. The complexity in this game is not so much what you're doing, but taking all of the constituent elements that work together and deciding how best to wield them. The actual things you do on your turn, quite simple. First off, you can either cast a spell or use a workshop. We have no workshops right now, but we can cast a spell. Look at this. I could cast any of these spells, and let's just do this one. Given your choice of one of the following, take it from the supply. So I'm going to use this spell, and so I've used one of its 3 usages. As soon as anybody has used it 3 times, this spell is discarded and a new one is put in its place. So I could take 3 stone, 2 iron, or 1 heart stone. So I am going to take 3 stone. Why not? Let's just look at that. We have a choice. Lots of choices. Next, we can either recruit 1 troll or dig a tunnel and score it. Now, right now, I'm not ready to... I don't really need to buy a troll yet. So instead, I'm going to use 5 of these resources. And I'm not saying this is great strategically. I'm just saying use it. I'm going to use 5 of these resources to construct a 5-sized tunnel. Now, can I do that? Let us find out. I'm going to take this one as an example. You can play everywhere you have to, all of the tunnels have to connect here, back to where you're at. Now, in this case, I could do any number of things. I can't cover up here, so I've got to be really mindful of what I'm going to cover up. So I'm going to do this. Notice that I'm covering up a coin, and I'm going to have to pay 1 rock for this extra heavy spot here, and I'm going to place it there like so. I get 1 coin, and I'm now next to a workshop. I get to pick one of these to place. Each of these is a conversion ratio. So, for example, if I have red bricks, then I can swap it out for tools like once a turn. Same thing, swap gold for jewels for... Can swap, yeah, like that's actually the same, but I get to pick one. In this case, I'm going to swap this, which means that I can trade in one black unit or 1 iron for one hearthstone, or one hearthstone for a coin, or vice versa, spend a coin to do that. Great when you need to do conversions to be able to put something together and you just don't quite have the resources. I have now built a tunnel. What's that worth? Well, let's check the chart. Because I used the cheapest stone and I built a 5, it's basically worth 5 points. I now assess myself 5 points. Look at that. We have scored our first points, and we place these back, place those back, and then finally we have an opportunity to dedicate a great hall. Can't do that right now because we don't have any configuration of tunneling that is sufficient to do so. And we can move our statues. Well, I don't have a statue yet. All of these are currently in their place. None of them are actually unearthed yet. You have to actually place a tunnel underneath it for it to be unearthed, after which you can then go ahead and move it towards the center where it will score more points. That's it for one turn. Now we're going to go do the alternate player's turn. Same thing. Do I want to cast a spell, or do I want to use a workshop? Well, I can't use a workshop yet, but I can cast a spell, and I will not. Because there really isn't anything I could do right now that makes sense that I want to. So instead, I can either recruit a troll or dig one tunnel and score. I too could dig a tunnel because I have sufficient elements to do so. But instead, I'm going to show you an example of how to recruit instead. Recruiting a troll is effectively either paying for a second or third level or simply taking a first level. In this case, I am going to take this free troll. Look at that. What does that give me? This starts a cascading aspect. I get a cart that I can use for any yellow statue, and I get 2 stone. This also cascades to any card underneath it that it connects to. So note that I've done this. Look at that. Now I have these resources available. They don't go into my pool, they stay where they are. You want to use the ones on the trolls first, because when they get refilled, when you refill it again, it's going to cascade down and allow you to repopulate any resources that aren't currently in use. So there you go. And then we flip that over. Now let's just go into some theoreticals. What if I had multiple coins? What if I really wanted this guy here really badly? Then I have to bribe all of the cards underneath it in order to obtain it. Once I can then take this and I can place it again here, and I get a statue. What is a statue? Or a pedestal. Pedestals will be explained shortly. And then I refresh, and then I grab yet another pedestal and place it on here. So that's interesting. Now, to get to the number 3s, note that you're going to have to bribe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these guys. And when anybody takes a card, if there's coins on it, well, you get the coins. So one person's expense might be your savings. These mean that you can go into the bag where you grab your pedestals from and take any color you want. Advantageous. Plus, the powerful nature of resources here is not to be denied. So then you're going to build your pyramid. Now, how does the pyramid end up? Well, once you've got, and we'll just use this as an example, say we've covered up everything, and we are now down to our side. To our final pyramid. Once someone places this, for the 10th one, this triggers whoever gets it first gets a special 3-point bonus at the end of the game. Plus, it triggers the end of the game. You finish the round, everyone gets exactly 2 turns left. Why 2 turns? Because honestly, when you fill this pyramid, you are effectively saying, fill this up, and every single unoccupied space gets filled up. You get a massive pile of resources right away for the final 2 turns. It basically says, at this point, you're going to want to go all guns blazing to whatever strategy you had. And again, you want to use resources as much as you can from the trolls in your, well, they call it a troll smoot, in this area here, because once you refill it, you want as many empty spaces as possible. Now let's go over pedestals and what their use is. When you are building tunnels, you might have some of these that have these giant eye hooks. No, they're not for hanging on a chandelier. You actually place them. And when you do, if you have a pedestal, say a blue pedestal, you place it that pedestal on here, on this anchor for that pedestal. Now, why is that valuable? Well, of itself, it's not. But let's go over an example. Say, eventually, I build here, and I've got and I actually unearth this blue statue. That blue statue can be moved, for example, with, say, carts. During your time on the cart, at the end of your turn, you can move by taking one of these carts for each tile. Not each square, each tile you can hop to. And anywhere you hop to another tile, you can place it wherever you want on that tile. So the statues do move quickly. You don't have to worry about going space by space. They go tile by tile. So there you've done. Now what have I done there? I have made this extra powerful because when it's time to score, note that the terrain underneath it, and that's why there's eye holes. You can look and go, oh, the terrain is light gray. Light gray would give me 4 points if I have a statue on there, but it's on a pedestal, double the points. Also, when you place one of these pedestals, you will look at the terrain underneath, and then you will grab the corresponding extra point token, and you will get these points at the end of the game. Note that once that's gone, you cannot place another pedestal of that same color on the underlying color. So now no one can place a blue pedestal on the light gray. That's done. This spreads it out, so you're not able to just concentrate on one particular gradient of color for underlying terrain. Note how powerful it is the closer you are. Note that if you get your statues way up towards the middle and you're able to get them into the lightest color, they're worth 10. With a pedestal, worth 20. So that's a pretty amazing thing that you want to aim for. For example, here, if you were to instead move to here, well, look at that. Now you've given yourself quite a few points. And finally, the last way that you will earn points is by the great statues. Now, this is more of a matter of Tetris configuration than anything else. Say, for example, that I have built here, and then I just do a little, there we go, look at that. Heck, what if I had a pedestal there even and stuff? Yay. Now at the end of my turn, I can decide I want to lay down one of these. Can I do it without covering up important stuff? I can. The pedestal's lost, but look at the points I might be able to gain. 11 if, there you go, see? All done. Now I have played a great statue, which means I, the player who controls this section of caves, will now earn points, at least 4 points. But if I'm able to take any statue, say, well, let's just, for example, say that I had a white statue there. If I'm able to use carts, white carts, for example, use a white cart, and I'm able to move it 1 space and then 2 spaces, I would get at the end of the game this amount of points, 11 points. And 11 points is a substantial amount of points. So that's how those work. And you'll notice that, like the Grandmaster tiles, these suckers, they're worth 25 points. Note that they do remove any ability for anything underneath it. You're not going to be able to put pedestals and anything else on it. This is the end-all, be-all. So this kind of covers up any other opportunity to score any points in that particular spatial grid. And that's it. You're going to play, taking turns, taking one of the 4 basic, very easy steps to go through back and forth until one of you has built a troll smoot pyramid comprised of 10 troll cards. When that happens, after the following 2 turns, you're going to score off your points. Now, you're going to score points during the game for tile laying. So as you lay tiles, you're just going to get those right away. But then you're also going to get points for any of the pedestals you place. You'll keep those in there, and so you get points for that. You're going to get points for resources. And so any collection of 3 resources is going to give you a single point. So that's kind of a way to eke a few points extra forward. And then you're going to do great hauls. And you're going to go like, oh, how many points do I get for this great haul? Well, 11. And finally, you're going to get points for where your statues are. And whether they have a pedestal on them or not. So, for example, like I said, this one here, this is a statue. It doesn't have a pedestal, but it's on the most valuable underlying terrain, so it's going to be worth 10 points. Ultimately, you add it up, and whoever has the most points is the winner. And that's really the essence of In the Hall of the Mountain King. Now let's get into my final thoughts. In the Hall of the Mountain King. Final thoughts. What do I think of it? Well, let's go over the cons first. FYI, it's going to take some time to set up. This is not a game that you can throw onto the table in 60 seconds and get rolling. There's a lot of pieces to it, a lot of components, a lot of setup and organizing and setting things in all the different places and stuff. Not a con, really. Just beware that even if you're trying to set it up for a couple players and stuff, it's not going to be a big deal. The other thing is I didn't really group. There was that section of the game where when you set down a pedestal, you have that sort of corresponding track of little tiny numbers you take. Didn't think it added that much, honestly. I think it kind of did, but it didn't really have any sort of crescendo. It was all random, so I just happened to be in the mood to throw down a white pedestal on this type of one of the 5 terrains, so I'm going to get this points and whatever. It's okay. It doesn't. It is what it is. It just seemed a little, an element of the game that seemed fiddly enough that I wasn't sure that I felt like it was just core and essential to the rest of the game. That said, I think that's it for the cons. Let's get into the pros. The pros are this game is a delight. Part of the thing is that you are given very, very simple set of rules for your turn. You do not have a ton of things going. Even though the board looks sprawling, there's a lot to consider, and there is. You don't have a lot in your turn that you have to contend with. There's not 4 major steps with 3 sub-steps in each. It's very simple. Can you use the spells? Yay! Note that in a 2-player game, I felt like it didn't scale or anything, so a 2-player game, you're going to see less spells than you would a 4-player game. The way it is, no big deal. I did absolutely like the pyramid scheme. I think the troll smoot idea is one that's very compelling because it gives your previous choices an opportunity to manifest themselves at least once more in later choices in kind of a cascading way. I like that idea. I think it's pretty clever, in fact. It reminds me sort of the clever mechanism in Rurik, Dawn of Rurik, or the Rurik game, Dawn of Kiev, where it had sort of a programming kind of aspect to it. This isn't programming aspect, but it's more of a, how am I going to position myself and, what do I want to do? Because what you want to do, you're going to want to steer towards getting the right type of trolls in there. And I liked the troll purchasing idea. I think the coin idea is very interesting. You could rise to the top quickly if you can grab a couple of trolls, bottom level trolls that will catapult you to some of those really powerful level 3 trolls. At the same time, you're having to take on trolls, like lesser trolls too. So I did like the tunnel aspect more than I thought I would. I knew it was kind of Tetrisy, but once you start to understand the flow of the rules, you get a real good vibe for what you're trying to do, because there really is a point to trying to say, what am I going to try and do? What kind of direction am I going to go? This doesn't give you, you're not going to be able to do everything you possibly want to do and more in this game, but it's less frustrating and constricting than, say, Agricola, where you never are ever going to be able to complete all the things you want to do, and in the end you feel a bloated sense of inadequacy, even in your greatest victorious moments. Here, not so much. You do have opportunities, and you do want to eke and squeak and try really hard to make the most of the resources that are trickling down to you at the right time. Timing is good, and timing is huge. You want to time things that you have the resources for the right time to be able to lay down the track, the cave track. You want to be able to maximize, the various, like every choice has some sort of thing around it that can have multiple ways that you could benefit from it. Because the thing is, you're never going for a disadvantageous position. You're not taking the troll of badness that steals resources. What you are instead is you're saying, I can get this benefit, but I really want to eke that much more benefit out of my choice of what I'm going to do. And so it really becomes a matter of, in some ways, sort of like Russian railroads, or even kind of Coimbra, kind of a bit, where you're always doing something. It's just a matter of how much you can maximize the cool thing you're going to do. It's always cool choices. The other thing is there's a back and forth with it. There's almost like a 2-cylinder engine going on, because you've got your trolls and they're generating resources. You're using those resources to generate places on in the mountain where you can add tracks, where you can put down pedestals, where you can move the statues to the most advantageous and delicious positions. Or on the other hand, you could flip it over and go, if I just lay down all these tracks, I can slap a great hall down. I got 2 carts, I can move everything over and get maximum points. So there's multiple ways to go. But you do go back and forth between, do I add a troll or do I build? Add a troll or build? There is some argument in my groups, and we'll forget it. First off, final thoughts. What do I think of the game? There are people who believe that this is a 2-cylinder engine and that the choices are too obvious. Like, when you're out of resources, well, clearly I cannot choose the cup in front of me. And so, of course, you grab a troll or not. And I think that's true. On the macro level, if you're low on resources, that's a good time to get a troll and refill your troll smoot with resources and then use those to build in whatever. But there's also that sort of small world-esque kind of risk, like, if I can pull this off and I don't have to get another troll for one more turn, and I notice that everyone around me is not so far ahead in collecting trolls that I'm going to be screwed because someone's going to hit their 10th troll and I've only got 7, and now at the end of this I've only got 2 turns left, kind of thing. But if you're kind of paying attention to all those things, you can find ways to go in. I'm going to maximize one more time and try to build just one more thing, because I mean, there are shared resources you want to take for yourself. You want that great treasure haul, and you know, looking at other people, if they could pull that off before you get there, then all of the plans you've made to create that tunnel structure to slap down a temple could be poof, gone. So I don't think that it's necessarily a 2-cylinder engine. I think it ebbs and flows. Like, take control, build a thing, take control, build a thing, kind of over time. But I think there's enough interesting decision-making on the fringes of that it more than makes it entertaining. And that's the thing. Every turn, for the most part, is entertaining. Every turn is building up, leading up. There isn't a lot in the way of dead turns that I found in playing the games that I play, that there is an opportunity kind of to try to do something or to position yourself to do something cool the next time around if other people don't foil your plans. It is a solitaire kind of thing. You're fighting for shared resources, but you're not having to contend for tunnel structures, because they do have to maintain separation. That also can be a strategy. Like, can I hem someone in and make it difficult for them to have to try and steer around me? That I didn't find happening on the lower player counts. On the higher player counts, it was more prevalent. But I was suppressed. Oh, help, I'm being surprised. One of the things, and I'm not going to lie to you, in short, I was not the target audience for In the Hall of the Mountain Kings. I actually stalled on buying it because, honestly, I looked at the box and it seemed kind of like a Duke Nukem like mod kind of art feel. So, I mean, people love the art. That's great. I wasn't drawn in by it. I wasn't drawn in by the description that you're building tunnels, but there are no monsters attacking through those tunnels and all that stuff. It didn't hit me. So the only reason I even came to this game was, I'd heard rumblings that it was really, really cool, which can be a hit or miss thing too, or I saw it on a sale for like $32, and I'm like, $32, whatever. And this is one of those games that is a surprise hit. It absolutely is as good as advertised. And I have the retail version, so I don't have the fancier components even or whatever. It is a game like Coimbra that surprised the snot out of me, that I didn't really give much of a notice. I'm like, me, me, me. I'm the knight that says, me. But it did. It actually is a very cool game once you start playing it. There are a lot of things that, even if you're not a big fan of Brown, what can Brown do for you? It can bring this game higher up on your list of games that I think actually probably deserve people's attention. I enjoyed myself with this game as much as I did almost any other game I've played so far this year. So once again, I have to say, despite not being the audience for it, despite kind of passing it off early on, this has really made a believer out of me that this game is as good or better than advertised. So, In the Hall of the Mountain King, roar! And we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.